Which NFC East receiver is due for a 2024 breakout this weekend? How should you handle the Chiefs' backfield in Week 3? And is there suddenly a new RBBC in the AFC East? Plus, the Week 1 Fantasy Pros Championship fourth-place team owner Bob McNamee joins us for a discussion of the Tennessee backfield, the resurgence of Zach Ertz, and much more. We've got a great show for you. Ferrell, Elliott is here. I'm Eric Balkman. Stick around. Your high-stakes fantasy football hour starts now.
Can't stand the pressure. I've seen greater men than need a lesson.
Broadcast live and heard around the world, you are now watching the most entertaining hour of radio on the planet. Welcome to the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour presented by myffpc.com with your hosts Eric Balkman and Ferrell, Elliott. The High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour is your home for analysis from the best players in the world. And now, because no one else was available, here are Eric Balkman and Ferrell, Elliott.
Solace in the scripture. Are we not all our father's sons? I became a man. Nobody ever told me what a man was.
Greetings and salutations to all of you Balkaholics and Ferrelliacs. Thank you so much for that introduction, Rob. Welcome to the latest episode of the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour presented by the Fantasy Football Players Championship over at myffpc.com. I'm your slightly above average host, Eric Balkman, and my co-host is the definitive commissioner of fantasy football, one Ferrell Elliott. Coming up on tonight's show, Ferrell and I are going to hash out our thoughts on Josh Reynolds and Juwan Jennings, and then the 2024 Fantasy Pros Championship Week 1 fourth-place team owner Bob McNamee is going to drop by for a talk on the Carolina Panthers offense now that Andy Dalton has taken over, what you should be doing with the Rams receivers, knowing that Kupp and Nakua are out against the Niners this weekend, and much more. If you want to connect with us on X, please do so at HSFF at Eric Balkman, and always check out the Kentucky Fantasy Football State Championship at KFFSC.com. Post on our Facebook page at facebook.com/HSFF. You can also email the show at highstakesfantasyfootball@gmail.com. If you have any questions for us, now is the time to send them in. We'll try to get to all the chat room questions, X posts, and emails in the fantasy feedback segment coming up later on in the show. Thanks to our audio engineer and my best friend Bryce, and of course our producer and mutual friend Rob. If you are looking for more FFPC fun but are sad that we don't have any drafts going on until January now, rest assured you can still build winning lineups with the FFPC in the Week 3 FFPC Weekly Challenge. There's no draft in this. There's no salary cap in this. You choose 10 players or 12 players, depending upon if you want to play with kickers and defenses, and watch them ride throughout the weekend's games. Oh, bulky, that's so easy. Well, here's the slant. You can only pick one player per team. You want Joe Burrow, you can't have Chase. You want Jaden Daniels, you can't have Terry McLaurin. And if you want Patrick Mahomes, you can't have Carson Steele or Travis Kelce. That's the slant. That's the gist of it. $35 to enter or $200 to enter, and you can win up to $2,500 as well. 10, 30, and 100 team contests, all available with the classic or slim format with kickers and defenses or without. Just go to myffpc.com, myffpc.com, and that is where you can play the FFPC Weekly Challenge. Remember to like this video, subscribe to the channel, comment on the video, share it with your friends, share it with your enemies, and get notified each and every time we go live. I want to remind you, it has been a busy week for FFPC in the media world. We've had a ton of stuff going on this week. In case you missed it, Tuesday night, we had the FFPC main event leader, Scott Hoyt, on the RotoViz High Stakes Lowdown. You can rewatch that over on the FFPC socials as well as the FFPC YouTube channel. Thursday night, I was joined by C.H. Herms from Fantasy Pros, the 33rd team, and Optimus Fantasy for 2 hours as the pregame lead-in to the Patriots and Jets last night. We got through a lot of stuff there, including building a weekly challenge lineup. If you want to rewatch that, FFPC YouTube, the Better Sports Network socials, as well as the FFPC socials, you can rewatch that. And then this morning, I was the guest co-host of Wake and Take with Jason Allwine from the Player Profiler Podcast Network. That aired this morning at 9 a.m. until 10 a.m. until 11 a.m. Eastern time. A lot of fun with Jason. He's awesome. He's been on the HSFF show before, and we hashed out a lot of stuff there, including some hot takes that were very fun as well. You can rewatch that over at the Player Profiler YouTube channel, as well as listen to it on the Player Profiler Podcast Network. Tonight, we are going to be joined by Ferrell Elliott and, of course, Bob McNamee, who was the fourth place team in the Fantasy Pros Championship after 1 week of play. A guy who is not a volume player and has not been for many years. So it's always good to get these guys' perspectives on it as well, because I think they have a unique look at high stakes fantasy football, something that, we don't always hear on this show, because we do get a lot of experienced players on this show. Let's get somebody who doesn't have a lot of experience, but is clearly a successful player. Bob McNamee coming up in roughly, I would say, about 10 minutes here on the HSFF Hour. I want to go bring something up at the top of the show tonight. JP Finlay is reporting that the Commanders offensive coordinator, Cliff Kingsbury, announced that the team has to find a way to get Terry McLaurin more involved. McLaurin on the season, 2 games, has 12 targets, which is solid, 8 catches, which is not great, but it's acceptable. The problem is it's only been 39 yards on 8 catches in 2 games. His targets are coming on more shallow routes than ever, and that is preventing him from getting those explosive plays. Jaden Daniels, it seems like, has been doing read 1, read 2, and then take off and run. 20 plus rushes in his first 2 games, 11 scrambles so far this year. We are excited to hear this as a McLaurin owner, and quite frankly, as a Jaden Daniels owner too. We want to see the big plays with Jaden Daniels' arm. We've already seen what Daniels can do with his legs. Let's figure out a way to get McLaurin the football, because with Daniels' arm and the way that Kingsbury runs this offense, this should be a perfect way to get McLaurin up to, top 15, top 20 receiver status. And hopefully it happens Monday night against the Cincinnati Bengals, as McLaurin will be in action. I'll bring in another expert on the matter right now, the commissioner of the the Kentucky Fantasy Football State Championship over at KFFSC.com. Want to welcome in and get his take on Terry McLaurin and what Cliff Kingsbury said today. Ferrell Elliott, welcome aboard, my friend.
Buddy, you look very impressively groomed. And you have a haircut. And this is great. You're talking about Daniels. He can do everything except score in the red zone. So get the Washington kicker. And I was listening to your intro there about the situation early on. We've got to get McLaurin the ball. And I think that's a theme throughout all the teams. When you begin to just imagine how many targets, 18 to Neighbors. I think St. Brown was 19. Collins was 12. Everybody remember Balkman back this summer when everyone was talking about, the Houston receivers. There's so many of them. How are you going to get the ball around? How's Nico Collins going to answer that 3rd round draft pick? Well, 12 passes and more this weekend, probably against a team that's got a pretty good defense. But it's all on the run side, not on the pass side.
And I'm hopeful that this turns around. Not only am I hopeful, Ferrell, I think it's going to. I think Daniels and Kingsbury are too talented to not figure out a way to get McLaurin the football. I'm very excited about McLaurin. I remain excited about McLaurin for the remainder of the season as well. Andy Reid said something ominous in his press conference today. I'm pulling this from KCTV5 News. Andy Reid said, "I can't give you a time when Pacheco will return. We'll just see if it's this season or next season." Now, originally it was reported that Pacheco is going to miss anywhere from a month and a half to 2 months with this leg injury, which we're hoping he gets back on the field in November. Now that we know that there's a chance he might miss the remainder of the regular season, it obviously increases the stakes for those people who went out and paid for Carson Steele, who paid for Samaje Perine, who got Keontae Ingram, who paid for Kareem Hunt, who we found out will not be elevated to the active roster for this weekend's game. Everything I've heard and read, Ferrell, is that Steele is going to be the guy who is going to run between the tackles, and Samaje Perine is going to get the 3rd down work and the catches. I haven't really heard much to the contrary of that. Kareem Hunt will probably figure into this conversation, but just not in week 3. As we look in week 3, and we'll talk with Bob McNamee about this in a little bit, I'm not trusting either one of these guys as starters. I think as a second flex, okay, maybe. But there's nobody on bye this week. And hopefully, as long as your team's not ravaged by injuries, you can wait for week 3 to play out, see how the Chiefs treat these guys, and then go forward in week 4. But if I can, I'm avoiding starting Chiefs running backs this week.
Whose team is not ravaged by injuries? Justin McCord sent me a note of his injuries, and at the bottom he said, "I'm not feeling very well either." And so, there's Okay. Balky, I agree with you, but I would not hesitate to run Carson Steele out there. I like the way he ran in the preseason. UCLA player gives me somewhat pause, but the way he plays, I like it. And there's a reason why they had to go in the market to get the veteran backs and have a young guy. So I'm not afraid to get him in the I'm not afraid to get him in my lineup and see how he works with the rest of these ball players. Mahomes is the interesting player coming in this game. He didn't have a very good game. We got a lot of quarterbacks didn't have very good games. In week 2. And they're some of the bigger names in the league, and 2 of them will be opposing each other. Something's got to give with Prescott and Jackson. And so I want to see the full package. But when you have such an offense, and you've got, one of the other guys you talk about you're going to get the ball to, let's talk about Travis Kelce. But when you have all those weapons for the Kansas City Chiefs, I'm never hesitant to start a running back against a defense that has to deal with all those weapons.
Ferrell, I heard this, just getting to the Travis Kelce aspect that you bring up. I heard the same thing about this time last year. What's wrong with the Chiefs? What's wrong with Kelce? Why can they not get him the ball? And then lo and behold, what happened? The Chiefs ham and egged it through the regular season. Travis Kelce fell just short of 1,000 yards receiving, which is awful for him, but fantastic for everybody else. Yeah. And they won the Super Bowl. I think we're in the same boat this year. I think the Chiefs are going to figure it out. And I think Kelce's still in for a solid year.
I do too.
There's nothing to worry about. The panic and obituary for Travis Kelce is way too early in the opinion.
Nonsensical. Do you think our players are acting like that?
I think here's the difference. Like, we're not playing unless you're playing the FFPC weekly challenge. You've made your bed with Travis Kelce and you have to sleep in it. Yeah. I'm fine with sleeping in my Travis Kelce bed right now. I know that it's not going to be great every single week, but more often than not, it's going to be pretty good. So I still feel very confident about him.
Yeah, I think you should. There's week 2 loser talk, all this injury talk. And some other loser talk, there's nobody to pick up in free agency. Sure there is. You got to use your imagination and project out. It's amazing when I go to the waiver wire and I say, I can't believe some of these players are still here. And especially going into – we had 2 waiver wire runs, and I look at it Sunday morning, and I say, wow, look at all these players that are available. They got big bids on them this week. And, the guys that show themselves in week 3, they'll get big bids. I talked to a very good fantasy player today. He told me he's got Pacheco, and his season is over, and he didn't get Steele. And I said, well, what about one of the other running backs? And he told me how bad the veteran Kareem Hunt was, and he would never help the team. I said, okay, so get the other Kansas City veteran running back. Did not know who he was and made a case that he shouldn't have to know. So that's why aren't these guys playing against me? I wish they were in my division.
That's the thing. And Scott Hoyt and I were talking about this on Tuesday's High Stakes Lowdown, and he said the difference, and I'm paraphrasing here a little bit, the difference in the waiver wire this year is not that there's nobody out there. It's that we haven't seen the lottery tickets like Puka Nacua and Kyron Williams like we did last year. There's not anybody obvious that is going to make an immediate impact. Now, if you sift through, there's certain guys out there. I mean, I keep looking for the injury away type guys, the guy behind the guy at running back. And my whole philosophy with this Chiefs thing is just give me a piece. Whether it's Steele, whether it's Pirine, whether it's Ingram, whether it's Hunt, and I'll figure it out. But I want to be ready and be able to deploy these guys in my starting lineup. Again, not necessarily this week, but going forward, I think it's important that you are using all 20 spots on your. I mean, I had some tough cuts this week with guys I was excited to pick up. I picked up. Let me ask you this. How do you feel about Jalen Tolbert? Because it seemed like I valued him more than my other league mates did over the course of the waiver wire this week. I probably got him in like 5 or 6 leagues, maybe 4 or 5 leagues rather than 5 or 6. But I mean, I was paying, 200 plus for him. He had 6 catches, 82 yards last week. And I know that's with, Ferguson out or whatever. But Schoenmaker was solid. And I feel like, especially in dynasty leagues, like if you want to get that number 2 receiver, long term, it's definitely Tolbert over Cooks. And it might be Tolbert over Cooks going forward. And Dallas loves throwing the ball. I love Tolbert, Ferrell. I don't know if you got him in any leagues.
I do. And I was a big Tolbert fan when he came out of South Alabama. And, we on the podcast, and that was early in our tenure of podcast as we look back. And, I beat the drum significantly for him, and he was a no-show, and he's been a no-show. And I think Brandon Cooks had a lot to do with that. I think the adjustment to playing in Dallas is a big thing. He might have adjusted quicker in other cities. But there was talent there, and I was wondering if it's ever going to show itself. And now you can see it given the opportunity. I don't think he's a one-game wonder. I think he's with a quarterback that obviously is going to improve on what he's done so far this year. So, yeah, I like it.
I like it too. So does Permar. He's also a fan of Jordan Whittington with the Rams this week too. And that's another situation too. I can't remember if I have it on the rundown. I think we're going to talk with Bob McNamee about.
Got to talk with Bob. Permar's right about a lot of things. Permar's talking about a Noah Brown, who's a player. That I had to release Noah Brown off dynasty teams. It just hurt me. Even though he's an older player, he's a talented player. Permar also wants to talk about analytics. You don't have to do that, buddy. Just look at your TV screen. We don't care. We do not care that Carson Steele ran a 4.75. We watched him in the preseason run over, through, and by players. It's no longer about what you ran in a straight line in shorts. So let's watch the game and see what happens there.
Yeah, that's the thing.
Right about Whittington. Whittington's not going to see the field because the flash from the University of Louisville, Tutu Atwell's back in business with the LA Rams. How sweet it is. And nobody's picking him up either.
And probably no. I mean, I saw him picked up in a couple leagues, but for very little. And I can't imagine he's going to be a difference maker. You never know, though. You never know.
Caught 4 passes this past week. Runs good routes, Balky.
A speedy guy too, and a former second-round pick, pedigreed guy. The Rams receivers, Chiefs running backs, among the things we are looking most closely at in Week 3. Bob McNamee is standing by. We're going to get to him in a little bit to talk about his fantasy football teams this year and what he thinks is going to take place in Week 3. But let's talk about the one game we can discuss from Week 3, Ferrell, and that's the Jets and Patriots. Now, last night, Braylon Allen had 11 carries for 55 yards, 3 catches for 13 yards. He had more rushes than Breece Hall. He outtouched Breece Hall Breece Hall outtouched him 20-14. Now, this was a 24-3 blowout, but remember, it's not like the Jets pulled away significantly early on in this game where they just sat on the clock the whole time. Only 11 first downs for New England. The Jets could do whatever they wanted on offense. They could let Breece Hall take maybe a little bit of a break, a little bit of a breather. They didn't need to ride him that hard. I am of the opinion that Hall is clearly the number 1 running back here. But with this fast start that Allen has had, I wonder how much of a committee backfield this has or will become.
I don't want to call it a committee, but I want to call it complimentary from Allen. And what you've done is you put running back Breece Hall at all kinds of positions, and you do also with the receivers. You're running them in motion. You're doing a lot of crossing routes. The linebackers are trying to run and catch up with these guys. They can't cover anyone, and Rodgers is picking them out. You have this defense laying back on the heels. Then you bring in a player like Allen, who's a strong physical runner, and it just it's the road has been paved for him. It's all downhill when the time he gets to play. And he's a wonderful player, and he's going to be, he's going to gain 600 or 700 yards, but you can't say he's necessarily going to take them away from Hall. He's going to be the complimentary back, and he's going to help salt the games away. And Balky, that game was 14-3 on the scoreboard, but the Patriots looked like they were 100 points down.
Yeah, and they played like it too. Demario Douglas was the bright spot on that team last night, but I was disappointed with Polk, Henry, Stevenson, Gibson, maybe a little bit, and definitely Brissett. And apparently Brissett's going to be their quarterback going forward into Week 4, according to Gerard Mayo. So I don't envision the Patriots offense getting any better. Jets defense is still pretty good as well. Back to Braylon Allen real quick before we get to Bob. Ferrell, Braylon Allen went to the University of Wisconsin. A lot of Packers fans are also Badgers fans. A lot of Packers fans understood that leaving Aaron Jones go to free agency and knowing that A.J. Dillon was clearly not the answer as far as a complimentary running back goes, there were more than a few Packers fans that were very excited about the prospects of Green Bay drafting Braylon Allen this year and having him go with Josh Jacobs into the running back room every single day and in and out of the huddle every single play to form a great tandem. Braylon Allen looks the part. Instead, Green Bay went with Marshawn Lloyd, who's on IR right now. Needless to say, there are a lot of disappointed Scotties that Allen is crushing it for Aaron Rodgers and the Jets, and Marshawn Lloyd is in the training room in Green Bay. I'll leave it at that. Let's get to tonight's guest.
Packers remain a mystery, Balky. What year did they draft Brian Brom?
Was it the year after Rodgers? So
you were in high school then?
I was not in high school in 2000.
You know, they tried to change his throwing motion and try to do it. The Packers are always a mystery.
Yeah.
You know, you just always a mystery.
A mystery wrapped in a riddle, smothered in secret sauce.
Hey, Permar's made it. Hey, bring this latest Permar up.
Yeah, here we go.
Permar, I must tell you something. I appreciate that and continued good luck to you, sir. You apparently are not playing in the KFFSC, and you are apparently definitely not playing in the FFPC, because if you were, you couldn't claim that all your teams are 2-0. I'm still trying to find. I've been trying to find the play. You know, we've got in the KFFSC, our beloved Ralph Siobhan is 3rd and 5th overall. He's also 624th.
I love that. But you'll take that every single time. You'll take that every single time. Is like, make all my teams nasty except for that one unicorn that wins it huge. Like, I'm fine. I'm fine with that. Rubio Permar.
Let's talk to a guy that is playing in the FF.
Yeah, let's do that. But Permar, we always appreciate it. Thank you so much. Bob McNamee is our guest tonight. He's already got a pair of FFPC league titles to his name, sitting in 4th place in the FantasyPros Championship leaderboard after 1 week of play as he chases a $1 million grand prize. Welcome aboard, BMAC23, Bob McNamee. Hello and welcome. How are you tonight, man?
I'm doing good. Thanks, guys, for having me on.
Good to see you. Oh,
sorry about that. That didn't take long.
We listen. This show has already been invaded by children and cats on my end, so a dog bark is nothing out of the ordinary.
That's a good trio right there. So.
Yes, exactly.
Ferrell, I met you briefly in Vegas last year. We were watching the I think it was the Chiefs and Lions, the Thursday night party, and gave you a little shoulder tap because I had seen you on here before and chatted for a couple minutes, but. Wasn't able to make it out this year, though. Some other obligations. Yeah, I wanted to be there, and hopefully next year we'll get back out there and get back at it at the main event.
It was awesome this past year, Bob. We had 2 watch parties, both Thursday and Friday, because of the
Friday game. Yeah,
the Friday game was fun too. We'll see what the NFL. You know, we never know what the NFL's capable of, and maybe they'll do a Wednesday, Thursday, Friday next year. Maybe they'll do Thursday, Friday. Who knows?
Maybe Sunday every day, 7 straight.
Yes, that's entirely possible. Listen, when before we get into fantasy football, tell us what you're doing for a living when you're not hanging out at the top of the FantasyPros Championship leaderboard.
Well, so I've been in the financial services investment advisory business for 20 years, a couple months ago. So,
congratulations!
Time certainly flies. Thank you. Yeah. So there's a lot of carryover from that world into the fantasy sports world, especially on the investment side, and managing investments, building portfolios, managing risk. Buy low, sell high, diversification. A lot of those really carry over into this world as well. And I think that's one of the things that's helped me and why I enjoy, the fantasy sports world, whether it's, home leagues, DFS. I just got into the FFPC a couple of years ago, actually. And I'm having a good time with that. So been at that 20 years and started playing fantasy sports probably 2007 or 8, I think, was the first year. And probably the worst thing that could have happened to me is I won the first league I ever did and kind of sucked me in.
Yep, you get hooked after that pretty easily.
Yep. I had no idea what I was doing, but won the league, and it was kind of, took off from there. So
What and I would imagine, like, when you entered like the high stakes space with the FFPC, I don't know how much of a learning curve there is, Bob. Like, I always feel like we always talk about taking the next step from your home league or your office league or your basement league. One of the things we always say at FFPC, that step is not nearly as large as people think it is. It's really not.
No, it was just getting used to the format, and I got on there the first time. I just did a couple of lower entry fee classic leagues, and got used to the format, got used to the drafting. The first time I did slow drafts, which some of that aspects of it I like, some of it I didn't, but I kind of dipped my toe in the water before I got into the main event last year, and just decided to kind of jump in head first after that first year into that, and did one draft in Vegas and then one online, 2 main event drafts last year, and they're completely different animals.
Yes.
I have never been in a room where there's like 40 drafts going on and timers and people yelling out picks everywhere, and there's a guy with a timer, and it was quite the experience. It was anybody that is listening that's on the fence about doing that, I would highly encourage it, because it's a pretty unique experience. But
you don't have any collective opinion junk in your head. You're still an outlier. It's like it's like when our old boy Permar comes out, he's not going to have a lot of things, people that, and you meet people and you value their opinions and you listen to them. And before you know, you got a bunch of opinions in your head that aren't necessarily yours. You come in with your head down and sit down and you stay on point. Rod Dotson comes in and he makes a statement, and I was too, on Alec Pierce. And this was a player that I still drafted a little bit this year, and I'm very, very happy that I hung on to him. And the reason that I drafted him is just one stat kept echoing in my mind. He lined up for more plays from scrimmage than any NFL wide receiver in 2023. And that's just hard to believe, but he did. He was on the field the whole time. And there's, you realize there's a future as long as he extends that play. He knows how to get open. So, there's players like that. So you keep them and you stay ready for them.
Bob, you have Alec Pierce in a league too, right? If I remember
I picked him up, I think prior to week 1, or maybe after actually, I think it was after week 1. I put a bid in on him, and I didn't know that stat you just threw out, but that's a good one to cling
Crazy.
to.
I didn't either.
Yeah, it's kind of slim pickings in some of these leagues. So, he's a guy who was putting up some numbers. They had some injuries there, and so far through a couple of weeks, he's looking pretty good. So haven't started him yet, but bye week's coming up, injuries are piling up. We'll probably get him in the lineup eventually.
I've got a question, and I want to go to running back. Tony Pollard, been on him aggressively. Was pleased to see, and Balky, correct me if I'm wrong, because I often am, was pleased to see that he never moved much out of the 7th round. And I thought it was a great, great bargain. He came, there was a lot of talk about Spears. I don't know why, just when Dallas had a down year and he didn't become an all-world running back that they expected in Dallas, that people quit on him, because he's the one good thing that's working at Tennessee right now. Do you have a lot? Do you have a lot of Pollard, or are you holding out hopes that Spears is the guy that a lot of FFPC fantasy players think he is?
Well, to answer your first question, I do have a lot of Pollard in FFPC and home leagues, and part of the reason for that was, is like you said, the 7th round price. I mean, a lot of my drafts, I'd try to grab at least one early round running back, and I've always kind of been a running back guy, so I started playing non-PPR, 100-yard rushing bonus is how I got into it. So it's kind of ingrained in my brain to take running backs early. But I've gotten away from that a little bit, but I usually do the hero strategy, at least try to get one early. And then he just looked like a great value at that point. I did get Spears in some of those leagues with him, maybe like a 7-10 round or, whatever pick. I can't remember exactly what his ADP was, but it just seemed like a great value. They paid him a lot of money. So far through 2 weeks, he's getting close to 20 touches a game.
And you're an investment guy. Follow the money. Thank you.
Exactly.
Yeah,
I mean,
that's always a little hint for you, right?
Yeah, and Spears will carve out a role and has a little bit. Now he's banged up, but it looked like he was getting the first crack at the majority of the touches, the goal line touches, and catching some passes. So it's 7th round. I mean, you get a guy touching the ball that much, and he's got some. I mean, a year ago he was a 1st round pick. Yeah. And I know he was coming off a big injury, a broken leg, and it just seemed like a great value. So I did get him in a lot of places. I was targeting him. I don't think I would have been on him in round 3 or 4, but 7, yeah, I'd take that all day.
All day.
Pollard, I just checked after the Philadelphia Green Bay game on Friday night. So essentially the last day of drafting of the season, Pollard slipped to the 7-12-801 on ADP. So that very end of the 7th round, which is really good for Pollard. On my local fantasy show, I'll tell you this too. Pollard was one of my sleepers this week that I think he's in for a big week. I know Tyjae Spears is a little bit hobbled. That Green Bay rush defense was okay. Because Taylor, they just stopped using him this past week. And I think Pollard rips off some chunk gains, and he threatens well over 100 total yards in that game against Green Bay. My prediction, we'll see.
Yeah, and some of the goofy stuff that Levis has been doing, I think they want to, get him some short passes and a lot of touches of the running backs.
You start mixing mayonnaise in that coffee, anything can happen. If it's not distilled, it shouldn't go into your coffee.
And was this a myth, or does he eat bananas with the peel on? I was just
going to say that. He had too many banana peels before that game.
It's just, what a bizarre guy. Fun guy, but bizarre. Let's talk about another fun guy, at least a fun guy to have, excuse me, on your FFPC teams. Zach Ertz, Bob, is the tight end 9 right now in FFPC tight end premium scoring. He does not play until Monday night against the Bengals. But when you consider what he's done in these first 2 weeks, do FFPC players need to make sure that he is in their lineups at a minimum as a flex in week 3?
Yeah, I've got him in quite a few spots as well. And part of that was I got him as my tight end 2, sometimes even a waiver wire pickup. In some leagues where I had Jaden Daniels and I kind of wanted a little bit of a stack there. But I mean, he's previous coaches there who got him a lot of targets in Arizona. He's been getting a decent amount of work, and he's healthy, and given the tight end landscape right now, I mean, you could do a lot worse. I'd say I'd probably rank him in the 10 to 14 range, somewhere in there, but I don't think it's crazy to play him over guys like Pitts or Goddard. I mean, it might sound crazy, but they're not doing anything. And there's a high projected score for this game in Cincinnati on Monday, and somebody's got to catch the ball. If they're in catch-up mode, I feel like, he could be a beneficiary of that. So I'd roll him out there this week, and especially in tight end premium scoring leagues like the FFPC, as a flex, I plug him in there over, a decent amount of, lower end running back or receiver options.
It's the rebirth of the veteran tight end, and Ertz is probably the answer to Daniel's red zone situations.
Yeah.
Yep. And you're definitely right.
Yeah, I've got him out there. I did start him over Conklin, which I'm regretting that a little bit now. After looking at what he did the first 2 weeks, it was hard to plug him in there. But
I would have done the same thing, Bob. Like I have Conklin in way too many leagues. I actually cut him Wednesday night in a lot of my KFFSC leagues for help at receiver and running back. But now apparently he's.
I hadn't cut him yet, but it was on my mind. It was an option.
Well, I mean, I'll tell you what, if KFFSC was tight end premium, I probably would have found somebody else to cut, but I'm like, okay, I'm done with this Conklin thing. And then he goes 5 for 93. I would have done
like Hunter Henry the week before.
Exactly. That's a perfect example of that. And I'll tell you this too, Ertz could still outperform Conklin this week.
Oh yeah, absolutely. If he gets in the end zone and gets enough work there, he's in a good spot this week. So I would plug him in there as a flex or, a low end tight end starting option.
Who isn't in a good spot is the Texans backfield.
Well, it depends.
I'm not real sure what to do with it, but I'm not concerned particularly about it. because I think the Texans will move the ball through the air, and I'm much more invested in the receivers and pass catchers from the Texans as I am at the running back position. Is there anything you're doing with those backup running backs to make an effort against the Vikings, which have pretty good run defense?
Yeah, they do. And I had Joe Mixon in the league that after week 1 was in 4th place, as well as Pacheco. So had a little bit of a rough Sunday with my running backs there.
It's 4th place out of how many teams, Balky?
16,500.
Just clarifying that. 4th place out of 16,500. Mm-hmm. Very good.
Well, yeah, and I had a strong start last year with the main event team, and then the injury bug hit me. But I was able to get a bid in on Akers. Pierce was banged up. He hasn't looked good in quite a while. May not be a great fit for their offense, but I put in a $250 bid on $251 on Akers and was able to scoop him up. And it looks like he's going to start this week. So that league that I have Mixon, I'm going to plug Akers in. I didn't really get any Pierce. He was either rostered already or I didn't want to put too much of a bid because it could only be a 1-week replacement. And it didn't look like Pierce was going to play, or if he did, he was going to be limited. So not a great matchup. But, considering he might be the main guy there, I guess there's another one. Agumba Wale might get some touches too, but I was able to get Akers in a couple spots. Somewhere I'm starting him, somewhere I'm just kind of holding, see what happens. But yeah, it's not a great situation other than the fact that Pierce and Mixon look like they're both going to be out. So I didn't go after Pierce a whole lot. If I had him already, I'd probably hold and see how Akers does this week and go from there. But Akers has a decent shot. They do have a good – Minnesota's got a pretty decent run defense, but he should get a lot of volume if that game – if the game script works out in Houston's favor, which, it probably will, but we'll see.
Ogunbowale is the guy I'd be concerned with taking Akers away on 3rd down and sort of taking away his pass catching opportunities. But yeah, I mean, in your situation with Pacheco and Mixon, to get Akers for $250 or whatever it was, that really helps you out in week 3 and maybe beyond. Bob, we'll find out what happens there.
Yeah, I had Pollard in that one too. So
there you go.
We got a couple decent options there.
Good. We talked about, Ferrell and I were talking about this at the top of the show. Carson Steele was owned in I would say about half my leagues. I did get him in one league off the waiver wire this past week, but certainly both he and P. Ryan were hot waiver pickups this week, the week before, and then quite frankly, just before the NFL season started as well. Keontae Ingram is gumming up the works there as well. Kareem Hunt just got signed to the practice squad. It's kind of a mess right now. The Chiefs are going up against the Cincinnati Bengals this week. I believe that is one of the Monday night games, if I'm remembering correct. Okay, all right. So that's one of them, and we're not going to get, if we get any information, it may not be until Monday. So how do you handle the Chiefs running backs this week? I don't know what your ownership is like on any or all of them, but what do you do if you're an FFPC player and you have one or more of these guys on your roster?
Well, I guess it depends on what your running back situation is. I wouldn't want to start any of them. If I had to, in this format where it's full PPR, I would probably lean P. Ryan. He hasn't done much the first couple of weeks, but he's had a couple of weeks to get up to speed a little bit, and he will probably be the 3rd down back. I think I read Kareem Hunt's not going to be elevated this week, so it's just basically going to be Steele and P. Ryan. Steele could be a good option if he gets a touchdown or two. I mean, he could be the goal line guy. He's got some juice in his legs. I didn't go after Kareem Hunt at all. I just don't believe that at his age and what he did last year and, the coming off being signed off the street, that he's going to have much of an impact. I could be wrong on that, but I would go after the younger guy that, has some seems to have some, pep in his step there. So I did get Steele. I actually rostered him already in a few leagues. Just speculating, and I didn't get any make any bids on him that I won. And P. Ryan seemed to be rostered in the majority of the leagues that I'm in, so I didn't get an opportunity to grab him. But I would rank them in full PPR, P. Ryan, then Steele, and then if you want to take a flyer on Hunt, in like non-PPR, some of those leagues, I would go for Steele. I think he's going to get the majority of the rushing downs, goal line opportunities. And if you're really in a desperate spot and you're looking to speculate, you could add Clyde Edwards-Helaire and see if neither of these guys do anything the next couple of weeks and he comes back, he can factor in.
How do you get more desperate than living on the street? It's like poor Kareem Hunt's down on the corner of Broadway and 4th in a refrigerator box.
I think he's out at least another 2 weeks.
Here's a picture of Kareem Hunt from his rookie year. How old is Kareem Hunt, for God's sakes?
He seems like he's about 40, but
okay.
I could tell you, he turned 29 in August.
Yeah, just God, man,
Raheem Mostert's 32, so who knows? But at least But yeah, so I would if you're really, like I said, desperate, CEH might have a role at some point, but Pacheco could be out potentially the entire year. I mean, he broke his leg. He broke his fibula. That's not, an easy thing to come back from. There might be some atrophy building back up, and then, he might not be effective or getting a workhorse type role again until maybe the playoffs, if at all. So, you're in kind of a tough spot if you had him. And, but I'd take a flyer really on if you have the roster room, any of them, see what happens. And there's going to be some opportunity there.
Yeah, and Camp Jones says Frank Gore time. Frank's probably sitting by his phone. He probably is.
Frank Gore might.
Frank's waiting. Frank's waiting. Andy Dalton is always a man in waiting. When Bryce Young, before they announced the switch at quarterback, I noticed, because you can't avoid point spreads anywhere. I noticed that the Raiders were an 8.5-point favorite. They announced Dalton, and the line moved substantially down, 5.5 or 6. My question centers around not Andy Dalton, but an old veteran. Hell, he's probably, he was probably playing college ball when Kareem Hunt was in the 8th grade. Adam Thielen. Now, Adam Thielen last year had one hell of a year on his way to like 100 catches. He comes in this game where they're going to have to throw the ball to move against. They're going to get rid of the ball quickly to move against this pass rush. And Andy Dalton is going to basically stay on one spot and throw the ball. What do you think about Thielen? If you got him anywhere, and if you do, would you put him in the lineup?
So Adam Thielen's another member of that senior circuit with Kareem Hunt, and I did draft him in a league. I remember getting him last year in the main event, like round 9 or so, and started off great. And he was basically free this year. But I'm actually looking now because I am starting him in one of the FantasyPros leagues here, and let me see real quick.
That's what you got to do, man. You got to play the outliers. You got to play the outliers. And I think every receiver, we mentioned Deontay Johnson. I think every receiver's in a position to benefit from this. Yeah. It'll be interesting to see what kind of routes Deontay Johnson runs. Because they're going to quickly get after the quarterback here. He's going to get the ball and get it out of his hands. And
and Thielen should benefit from that. Last year, in week 3 of last year, the only game Andy Dalton started last year, Thielen had 14 targets, 11 catches, 145 yards, and a touchdown.
That's what you call research, Balky.
I love it.
I'm not saying that's going to happen again, and Deontay Johnson was not there then. But if you're looking, if you got a desperation play, I think that kind of a little gut feeling that he might produce this week, and
that's a good gut.
Might be a guy that he relies on. I'm playing him over Quentin Johnston, Cortland Sutton. Now, one interesting thing is Christian Watson. I wasn't sure if Jordan Love was coming back this week or not, but as of now, I had him in there over all 3 of those guys, and I have Alec Pierce on that bench as well. So far, he's in my lineup, old man Thielen, but we'll see what the Jordan Love news is. I may swap him out for Christian Watson if he's active. But I do like Thielen this week. If you've got him, this is probably the week to use him.
Do you guys want a Matt LaFleur press conference update on speaking about Jordan Love today?
Yeah.
So here's what happened. He was asked at his presser today if Jordan Love has been medically cleared to play on Sunday. LaFleur nods his head and says, "We're working through that." Matt Schneidman, who covers The Athletic for the Packers, then follows up and says, "So does that head nod mean yes, he's been cleared?" Matt LaFleur responds, "We're working through it." Bill Huber, who covers the Packers for SI, this is how you can take different things can mean different things to people. The same thing can be different things to people. Bill Huber puts out on X that Jordan Love has not been cleared medically. Matt LaFleur went on to say that a lot of the decision will be going into how Jordan Love feels about it as well. So what I got from that gobbledygook is nobody knows what the hell's going on with Jordan Love. My guess, and I this is kind of, it's splitting. I mean, there's a lot of beat writers that think he's on track to play, and there's other beat writers that don't think he's going to be out there. I lean to the more conservative side. I don't think he is going to be playing against Tennessee, but I've seen crazier things, Bob. I've seen much crazier things.
Yeah, I would be surprised if he did. And I'm certainly not, even if he did, he might be a little hobbled. This could be
Right.
gamesmanship, coach speak, whatever going on. But yeah, so I would lean on the same, side of you with that, is that he's probably not going to be out there. But if he is, it's at least something to consider, with the Thielen, Watson, or any of the Packers, receivers. It's just hard to play any of them right now.
Yeah.
Given what we saw last week.
Well, you mentioned, Bob, too. I mean, like, Watson is healthy. Reed is healthy. All these Packers receivers are healthy. It's a quarterback who's not. Across the country, in California, the Rams are a team where the receivers aren't healthy, but the quarterback is. And now we have to figure out, who is this healthy quarterback going to be throwing to this week? Is it Whittington? Is it Atwell? Is it Tyler Johnson? Is it Demarcus Robinson? When you look at that Rams receiver core, who would you be starting, or who would you feel okay starting from the Rams, if anyone, against the Niners this weekend?
I would consider Demarcus Robinson at least a number 3 wide receiver in a flex. He's been there. He's been in the system. Stafford's going to have to throw the ball, you would think, against the 49ers, although I just saw they've got, now they've got McCaffrey, Debo, and Kittle not playing this week. So they're going to be a little banged up too. Jawan Johnson or Jennings is a little interesting there. But if I needed somebody this week, I'd be good with rolling Demarcus Robinson out there if you have him. Ty Johnson, I'm not as high on. The Jordan Whittington is interesting. I think is a flyer a little longer term. There's a rookie, got some buzz in training camp, put up some good numbers during the preseason. And the Rams have a history of bringing guys seemingly out of nowhere and making them fantasy stars like Kyron Williams and Puka and all these guys. So I would take a flyer on Whittington. I think he's probably the cheapest guy to acquire and see how it plays out. But I think Demarcus Robinson's a good start this week. And if you're desperate, you could throw out those other 2 guys as well. And Parkinson at tight end. But there's going to be a beneficiary there of the pass volume. And my guess is Robinson's going to get the first crack at the number 1 role.
Yeah.
See, when you leave the investment world, we can get you a position with the Green Bay Packers. That was a fluid answer that covered every possible situation. And people could I had a good friend that coached in the NBA. So they had 82 games plus. And his response when people would ask him those kind of questions, Balky, about your quarterback Love, he would think about it just for a few seconds, say, it's hard to say. And I think that was his go-to expression. It's hard to say. I got a new subscriber, Balky, that asked for some tight end help, and you answered it. You answered it. I think Jason deserves a longer answer.
Yeah, we could do that. And Bob, I'll throw this to you too. Jason Manua on YouTube right now. George Kittle is out this week. Is that official, by the way? He's out, or he's
he's doubtful, but
okay,
he's probably out.
He's not going to play. Done. Okay, so then the options for him off the waiver wire: Jonnu Smith, Mike Gesicki, Brenton Strange, Brenton, right? Is his first name Brenton Strange from
Close
Jacksonville?
enough.
Okay. Colby Parkinson, Taysom with T. Higgins back, he thinks he's going to steal targets back from Mike Gesicki. What should he do? Now, I said that I like Gesicki best here, but again, he was limited in practice today, and he's not playing until Monday. So you may not feel great about that when you're starting lineups or when you're setting lineups on Sunday. I said the next best guy is probably Parkinson. Bob, when you look at those options there, who would you be encouraging Jason to pick up in place of Kittle this week?
Yeah, I mean, I get the Gesicki thing with Higgins out. I think I'd still probably roll with him, looking at the connection that he's had with Burrow these first couple of weeks, and there is a high, projected score for that game. And there's going to be, I think, all the pass catchers for the Bengals could have kind of a get right week. Not that Gesicki needs one, but I would probably lean towards him or Parkinson. I know Parkinson didn't do much last week, but again, they're going to have to keep up in this game, and I think he has the opportunity. At this point with the tight ends that you're dealing with here, you're basically hoping for a touchdown. Any yardage and receptions you get, it's kind of a bonus. Taysom Hill's a wild card. If you have Taysom Hill,
he's quarterback.
Well, in this, I'm saying in Jason's league that he's talking.
He's a tight end.
He is a tight end in Jason's league.
Well, Jason, you got to get the hell out of that league and come play in the FFPC because over here he is a quarterback. So don't get Taysom Hill. He's all beat up. I'll tell you what you can do after you do your bidding, and you might be in a league where you just go in and claim them, which is a disastrous way to play fantasy football. You need to blind bid for these guys. But Balky, you have the quickest search engine in all of the country. And I just cannot remember his name. He's a player out of Drake. He's been around a long time. He's Kittle's backup with 49ers. And
Eric Saubert?
There you go, Saubert. The Saubert's been in the league a long time. He's probably older than Kareem Hunt again. But
he is. He's 30. Kareem Hunt's
okay, he's 30 years old. But this is the same move we did last week. Not with expectations of that such a positive situation, because we put up the Dallas backup for Ferguson, which I keep calling Spoon, but it's not Spoon, it's Spoon, whatever it is. But yeah, good player. And he came in and got us in FFPC scoring 14 points.
Yeah.
In a situation where the 49ers need answers of pass catchers, this guy, this is his big day. This is one of the big days in his career. So maybe you want to latch onto that and hope you can get something, a little hero situation.
Yeah, it's entirely possible. Ferrell, I got your opinion on Jalen Tolbert before, but let's ask Bob about the Dallas number 2 wide receiver.
Why not? Cooks or Tolbert?
Would you cut Cooks?
No, really?
Would you cut him to pick up Tolbert?
He's already got Tolbert.
I'm just saying, in a vacuum, who would you rather have as the Dallas number 2 receiver?
That's a good. I actually have no exposure to either one of them. I don't know that I would go out of my way to make that swap if I already had Cooks, and maybe that's just I've always been kind of a Brandon Cooks fan. But I did look up Tolbert last week, 9 targets, 82 yards. Cooks had 1 game last year with that amount of targets and that amount of yards, and Tolbert's done it already. In 2 weeks into the season here. He's a young guy. He's got some upside. So I wouldn't blame anybody if they did cut Cooks for him. I do think it might be a good flyer. If Ferguson was out, that may have partially be what fueled that for Tolbert. But
and Lamb got banged up that game too, for what it's worth.
Yeah, he was on and off the field. So I would go. I would take a flyer on Tolbert just to see how it plays out, because they're a little, anemic on the options outside of Lamb there. So I don't know that I would go as far as after 1 good game to cut Cooks for him, but I wouldn't think somebody was crazy for doing it, because
in other words, it's hard to say. It is.
It's very hard to say.
It's very hard to say. Now, when you're doing your Fantasy Pro stuff and you're, the waivers have run, and you go look at who you won in the bidding, who you missed out on, and how close did you get. One of the things that I absolutely love more than sometimes who I picked up is who did everyone else drop? And, I'm marking immediately. Curtis Samuel dropped in some leagues. Can't wait to get my hands on some Curtis Samuel. Hope no one else likes him.
I've heard that, that's part of the reason I drafted him a couple places from listening to you. And
it's the story is not told yet. If you had told me, if you had told me that old boy would come up from Atlanta, Mac Hollins, and claim a spot in that offense, I would say, you've been smoking something that Mac, with Mac. So I don't know, but it's I did not expect that, but I don't believe that story is yet to be written. And in the 11th round where I drafted Curtis Samuel, I wasn't playing him ideally until after bye weeks. It looks like Shakir is going to be the number one receiver here. Shakir is with that physicality that he has, it's going to be difficult for him to stay healthy. I don't expect him to leave the field, but they're going to have to get that ball in the hands of some other playmakers. And they're doing things for Samuel. They in the Thursday night game, they tried a behind the lines pass that didn't work, and they also tried to hit him in the corner for a touchdown. So that story is still to be told. But what's amazing is that you've seen a lot of reactionary. There's better examples of it than Curtis Samuel. We've seen a lot of reactionary situations from our fantasy players who are just wholesale giving up on certain players whose season has yet to really get started yet.
I think the other thing to keep in mind about Buffalo, that I don't want to say it's week to week, but you could see Keon Coleman get hot for 2 or 3 weeks. You could see Shakir be, the guy for 4 weeks. You could see Samuel be the guy for 2 or 3 weeks. So that could change on a week-to-week basis. It could vary quite a bit.
I think Samuel missed a little bit of time towards the end of the preseason and was banged up and maybe still working his way into that system or back from that. But yeah, I mean, when bye weeks roll around, injuries pile up, and as the season goes on, I wouldn't be looking to dump him just yet, given the offense that he's in, and the other options are kind of all over the place right now there. So definitely still holding him where I have him.
I want to get to a couple of emails here for you, Bob. Next, first one from Bill in Allentown, Pennsylvania. This kind of gets back to our Alec Pierce discussion we had before. Should I look at starting Josh Downs in his first week back against the Bears? Thanks, Robert. That is Bill in Allentown, Pennsylvania. Bill, we appreciate the email. We all seem to be Pierce fans on this show. I definitely liked him more than my league mates did based on how many leagues I got him in Fab after week 1. But regarding Josh Downs, now he's back this week. He's going to be playing. And this is a guy that I think had a connection with Anthony Richardson last year before Richardson got hurt. What about Josh Downs? Is he a play in week 3 as a start, Bob?
I would prefer not to have to do that if possible. I'd like to see how those targets play out, and there's not a whole lot of them to go around between, Pittman, Pierce, Downs. So far, it's been all Pierce. I without looking at the roster and what the alternative options are and all that, it's hard to say. But I don't know that I'd be rolling him out there this week on his first game back with a low pass volume offense and the amount of potential targets that could be coming his way. I guess if you're desperate, you probably have to be pretty desperate. I want to see how it plays out first, personally.
Pittman is a little hobbled, and Balky started the show.
I saw today he had an issue.
We're talking about how we must get the ball to McLaurin and how teams are getting the ball to their number one guy. And I prefer to get the ball to the guy that's getting open. But we've got some week 2 numbers to support that number one receivers are the coaches are trying a way to get the ball. So that's what I'd be hesitant to do anything with Pittman other than get him in the lineup. But when you've got a quarterback that can extend the play, it's a beautiful thing for Pierce, and that's the difference, and that's what I love about him.
Yeah, and he's showing it this year, which is it's been great. It's been great to have Richardson healthy too. The other email I have here for you, Bob, is from Brian in Sacramento, how do I handle a questionable Evan Engram this week? Now, he's not officially questionable yet. However, he did not practice yesterday. He did not practice today. And the reason he doesn't have an official injury tag is because the Jaguars play Monday night. So if you are rolling the dice with Evan Engram on Monday night, I would strongly suggest that you do what Permar is saying, pick up Brenton Strange so you have that guy on your team. Wasn't all that bad in week 2 with no Evan Engram. But Bob, your thoughts on Engram here? Is it simply pick up Strange and then start the guy who's active, or is this more nuanced, or maybe you have a better option on Sunday?
Yeah, I don't know what the alternative option is that he might already have, but if you don't have another tight end, which I would assume you do because Engram didn't play last week, and if you don't already have Strange, you probably have somebody else in your roster, and I would start them depending on who it is. But most likely I would plan on Engram not being there. And if you got a better option than Strange, start him. If you don't, pick him up and see how it plays out. But it doesn't look like he's going to play this week. So I would be looking for another option. And if you don't have a better one than Strange, roll with him.
You know, the schedule makers did not do Jacksonville a favor, and they're 0-2, and the quarterback looks to be struggling a bit to me, and the running back's having ball protection issues, and this is a road game at Buffalo, I take it, Balky?
The Monday night game is in Orchard Park, correct?
Yeah, and that's a difficult trip. I'm kind of glad I'm not in business with as much Jacksonville as I could have possibly been.
Yeah, it's not a great situation to be in, but a great situation to be in is the one you and I are in, Ferrell, because we get to ask Bob this final question.
The other thing you could do real quick before you move on is if Zach Ertz is somehow still available, he plays Monday. Yeah. I would grab him over Strange personally. But
now, where have you seen Zach Ertz available? Zach Ertz is not available.
I've seen him picked up this week in a lot of leagues. In FFPC, maybe not, but
that's what we're talking about here. That's all we're concerned about is the FFPC. Because these guys don't play anywhere else except for undefeated.
Why would you?
And this is what we got to pay attention to. FFPC. See the logos behind Balky. Put your head down.
For what? Okay, here it is.
There you go. That's what we're doing here. We're focusing on that.
For what it's worth, to Bob's credit, he is only owned in 91% of FFPC leagues.
He
is out there. He is out there
at the wheel. Yeah.
None of mine. Damn it.
Yeah. Go ahead, Ferrell. Last question.
None of mine. I got more.
Ferrell's having issues now, not being able to. He's like, okay, I got to be in one of these 9% of FFPC leagues.
I'm looking for Ertz.
Ferrell's like, seriously,
you're doing a wire search right now?
Using his free agent finder right now. All right, Zach Ertz.
I think I did pick him up last week.
Well, we've talked about every player in the damn league besides Kareem Hunt. Who's your favorite sleeper? Give it up. A lot of these guys are playing in home leagues, maybe if they're listening, with 16 players. So give up your sleeper, who's probably already rostered in the FFPC.
Well, you can be rostered in the FFPC, just a guy that maybe is on a lot of benches.
Yeah. Give me a sleeper.
I would say one that I like a lot, who hasn't done a whole lot the first couple of weeks, is Zach Moss. I've got him on several rosters that I haven't started him yet, but it was a kind of a later round draft pick. And I think this week it's going to be game scripts in his favor. The Bengals offense is going to start clicking a little bit better. He's getting 75% of the running back rushes. He's going to be the goal line back. If they get ahead, you could see a big game out of him. So any league that I have him in, I'm trying to squeeze him in my lineup somewhere.
Conversely, is there a player that's going to be started in a lot of leagues in the FFPC that you think is not going to have a great week 3, Bob?
I've got Aaron Jones is an option there. Last week he was out-touched by Ty Chandler. Not a great situation for him this week. It seemed like he was a little banged up too. Houston's got a strong run defense. Another one I was thinking is Jalen Waddle. Kind of hard to bench him. Obviously, the quarterback change there could be difficult for him to get going this week. So those are two that are probably mostly universally started that may struggle this week.
And we have some real genius in the comment section, Balky. Scott Hoyt came in. This is why you listen to the very end of the show, to get the nuggets from our guest and to get Scott Hoyt, a guy that knows how to win in fantasy football, to throw up something. And Jones came in with something late too,
Yeah, Scott actually talked about this on the RotoViz High Stakes Lowdown on Tuesday night, talking about Juwan Jennings without and this was before we knew about George Kittle, too. He was already talking about Juwan Jennings. And then so we got that, Juwan Jennings from Scott Hoyt, and then Camp Jones. Jalen Naylor for the win. Addison, I do believe, has already been ruled out. Jefferson's going to be out there. He's clearly less than 100%. We'll see with Jalen Naylor. I'll be honest with you guys. I don't really believe a whole lot in Naylor, but yet I've been wrong on him in week 2. And I did pick him up in a couple of leagues just because other people were talking me up about Jalen Naylor. I'm like, all right, I don't believe in this guy, but I'll do some FOMO bidding here, and I got him in a couple of leagues. So there you go, Jalen Naylor. Not starting him this week as of right now, but we'll see what happens. A guy I would start in my fantasy player lineup every single week, the incomparable Bob McNamee. 4th place team in the Fantasy Pros Championship after week 1. Maybe many better things in your future as you chase this $1 million grand prize in the Fantasy Pros Championship. Bob, congratulations on the leagues you've won in your FFPC, your young FFPC career, and continued good luck in your the remainder of the 2024 season. And maybe Ferrell and I will be able to catch up in Las Vegas with you next year.
Yeah, thanks, fellas. I appreciate it. It was fun being on with you guys, and definitely going to try to track you down in Vegas next year.
That's awesome. Thank you, Bob.
Good luck to you guys this week.
Take care. Have a great weekend, my friend. We'll see you. That is Bob McNamee, the 4th place team owner in the Fantasy Pros Championship after week 1. I think we're going to have to do a segment here as I'm scrolling through the chat here, Ferrell. And maybe we can get this sponsored by somebody. Now I'm in my local radio mode right here.
Terrestrial radio
mode. Permar 99 pickups of the week. Jalen Tolbert, Jordan Whittington, Darnell Mooney, Brenton Strange, and Noah Brown are the pickups. I'm right. I'm always right on this show. And quite frankly, I don't really fact check Permar, so he could be right.
He could be right. And you know what he did? Again, and Permar made a statement. He says he's coming to and you said shots fired. Balky, that's the wrong connotation in the world we're living in.
That's true.
But,
yeah.
But
right.
Permar is very active tonight.
Yeah, which we like.
And what he's saying is pick up all these guys. If he's playing in the FFPC, he would understand that all these guys are already rostered. So,
not all of them. Not all. Yeah,
pretty much. Go through that list again.
Let's see if I can bring it up here. I remember.
So he also says that Ertz is available in Ferrell's home league. Please understand that Ferrell's home league. Balky, move your head again.
Sorry,
Ferrell's home league is the FFPC. That's the only league I play in. That's my home.
Right.
And he also says he's going to come out. He's challenging me. He's going to take me down or something like that. Let me tell you, when you get to the FFPC, Ferrell, the humble Ferrell, is the last issue that you're going to have when you walk in that room. you got many more things to be concerned about than me. But we're off to a pretty good start in some of the leagues this year.
Yeah, which is great. I mean,
it is fun.
Getting off to an early start, as any high stakes player tell you, is very important because I was telling
makes
Scott,
you feel good in September anyway.
It does, and I was telling Scott this Tuesday night. I'm like, the league playoffs will be here before we know it, and to get off to a good start, a 2-0 start with scoring a lot of points, really important in these leagues for sure. Can we go rapid fire on these emails?
Sure.
Okay. Randy in New York. Hi guys. Oh shoot, do I not have it? I don't have it. Hold on. Let me load them up.
You got to be good to Randy.
Yeah, I know. Let's see here. I think this is the only one I have. Hi, guys. This is Randy in New York. Hi, guys. What do I do with Raheem Mostert not expected to play this week? Thanks. Great show. That is Randy in New York. We appreciate you, Randy. Mostert probably not going to play. Was there anybody else we liked this past Thursday with the Bills and Dolphins? Like, it was Devon Achane, and that was it. I mean, I can't trust Wright or Wilson.
So if he's asking what Dolphins do you play,
Dolphins running, I'm assuming that's what he means here.
You play Achane, and if you're asking, do you dump Mostert for another free? No, you hang on to Mostert. When he comes back, he'll be ready and he'll add something to this team. Skylar Thompson is the big mystery for this weekend, so I'm going to play all my Dolphins, and I'm going to trust in what this team is trying to. Yeah, I'm going to play all my Dolphins because I'll tell you what. Do you think Skyler, when Tua got hurt, he had completed for about 150 yards, 130 yards, something like that against the Bills, and he had thrown 3 interceptions. I don't think he can do much worse than the Tua's stat line against the Bills. I think Skyler to be in a managed situation. I think he's going to rely on that tight end. Jason asked about a tight end. There's your check down tight end. And we'll see what he does managing this team. He's going to put the ball in hands of playmakers and safely get the ball to them. So, you know what? I'm with all my Dolphins. They're in the lineup just like they ordinarily usually would be.
I did say this on my local fantasy football show. I said I'm still playing Tyreek Hill everywhere. I think it's a little bit more of a nuanced decision when it comes to Jalen Waddle, depending on how heavy you went on receiver early in your draft.
Yeah.
There's a chance that you might be able to find 3 receivers better than them, and then maybe you have a running back like Jordan Mason, who you didn't expect to be a starter this early in the season.
Sure.
And maybe, you know what I mean? So there is a pathway. I still think you are starting Waddle more often than not, but I think that he's not the must start that I think Tyreek Hill is.
Of course.
Let's see. This is Craig in Doral, Florida. Hey, fellas, what's up? Is Josh Reynolds an FFPC flex this week? Thank you. That is Craig in Doral, Florida. Thank you, Craig. We appreciate it. Ferrell, I kind of scratched my head when I saw something like Josh Reynolds. Then I looked it up. He's 23rd in the league in receiving yardage right now with 138 yards through 2 games. He's caught 9 balls. That's kind of flex worthy, I would say. And then the Broncos get Tampa this week in a positive game script for Bo Nix and the Broncos. I think he might be a flex.
I think he's their best receiver. He high points the ball. He gets open. They question his physicality, and you can look at him and understand, but I think he's a tougher player than anyone gives him credit for. He's a journeyman in the league, but I respect his skill set much like I respect a Noah Brown. And, because of poor performance, because of availability, due to injury, some of these guys are getting a chance to play, and Reynolds is responding. I've always thought he deserved a bigger role. Same thing for Jennings out with the 49ers. I was drafting Jennings at the main event, and people were giving me a little side eye. He was my Pearsall replacement because anything you liked about Pearsall, you could like about Jennings.
Anytime you have a rookie that gets off to these slow starts, the gunshot was not the only injury that Pearsall was dealing with in preseason too. And when you have a rookie who gets off to a slow start because of injury or what have you in training camp and then the regular season, that can really set you back for the regular season as well, the remainder of the regular season. And that is our final email that we have today from Steve in Oakbrook, Illinois. Jawan Jennings, yay or nay without Samuel and Kittle? Ferrell, I look at this. Yes, it is a good situation fantasy-wise for Jennings to be in. My concern is the Niners, who are 6.5-point favorites in this game, battling a team in the Rams that are without Kupp and without Nakua, whose offense could just fall apart, quite frankly. Non-zero chance of that. I wonder if Jennings will be used as much as we would hope here. I think he's a borderline second flex for me. I would hope you have a better option. Maybe you don't, and I could be okay with it, but I try to find something else.
I'm trying to find that 15-point receiver if I've had injuries and if I didn't play Lazard last night because there was one of your 15-point receivers.
Yep.
I don't believe that a team milks it, shifts down into a lower gear and tries to manage a game when you have a quarterback like Purdy. And, this is an option when you take stars away from a team. You let other players that have been somewhat in their shadow step up. And what you're doing in team building with players like that, you're proving that this is a next man up mentality and next man up league. That's the beauty of the 53-man roster. And the 49ers think, and they well could be right, that they have the best 53-man roster in the league. I know I can't get a return phone call from them. So, so they believe in their players that they've had there. They are going to let them work within the system. And Jennings has already logged a lot of time on the field. So I'm all for Jennings. And, yeah, it just depends on your injury situation. But I'm a big believer in Jacoby Myers. I'd probably start him over Jacoby Myers. I'm that situation that we were talking about in Dallas. I would probably start him over Cooks and Tolbert. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's close when I always think like you go with your gut in that scenario, right? Because I could see Jennings. I probably would start Myers over Jennings. Now, of course, they're playing no, I would not, because that should be a positive game script for the Raiders running backs this week. Maybe this is the week that they finally get on track with White and Madison. Remember, is it Derek Brown, the defensive tackle for Carolina, out for the season? So that's going to be a hole in their rush defense too. But yeah, I mean, I think Jennings, Myers, Cooks, Tolbert, these guys are all borderline second flexes this week. And if that's what you got to go with, like Ferrell said at the top of the show, who's not banged up right now as far as fantasy goes? And we certainly appreciate the insight that you brought from top to bottom tonight, Ferrell. The KFFSC is conveniently located on the interwebs at kffsc.com. I encourage everybody to check it out. And Ferrell, thank you so much for hanging out with me tonight. We appreciate it. Have a great weekend. Let's do this again a week from today.
You do the same, Balky. I'll talk to you soon.
You got it. That is Ferrell Elliott, ladies and gentlemen, the incomparable commissioner of the Kentucky Fantasy Football State Championship. I want to thank him, Bob McNamee, the FFPC, Rob Bryce, and of course, each and every one of you. The High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour returns a week from today, 10 p.m. Eastern Time, with FFPC main event. Week 1 leader Mark Kingstrom will join the show. You can also watch, in case you missed it, Tuesday night's High Stakes Fantasy Football. Tuesday night's High Stakes RotoViz High Stakes Lowdown with Scott Hoyt, who was in the chat tonight, which was awesome to hear from him again. Watch that on the socials or on our YouTube. This coming Tuesday, the Week 1 Fantasy Pros Championship 5th place team owner, the analog kid, Dan Williamson, at Overhyped Sleeper on the X, the host of the Player Profiler Fantasy Empire podcast, will join me at 10 p.m. Eastern on Tuesday. In case you missed last night's High Stakes Fantasy Football show on the FFPC YouTube and the socials, or on the Better Sports Network. 33rd Team, Fantasy Points, and Optimus Fantasies, C.H. Herms join me for 2 full hours next week at 7 p.m. Eastern on Thursday night. RotoViz's Blair Andrews will hop aboard with me. That's going to be a lot of fun. Speaking of a lot of fun, play the FFPC Weekly Challenge. No draft, no salary cap. Just pick the players that you want, 1 player per team. You can play with kickers and defenses and have a 12-man lineup without in a 10-team lineup as well. $35 or $200 to enter, and you can win up to $2,500. Just go to myffpc.com. That's myffpc.com to register for those for that competition, and you can play in many of those challenges as well. Remember to like this video, subscribe to the channel, comment on the video, share it with your friends, share it with your enemies, and get notified each and every time we go live. For Team Porkies, who is going to say goodbye tonight, and Scott and James, I apologize. I forgot to do that last week. So I'll do 2 of them tonight. Team Porky says goodnight. Your weekend officially starts now.
This has been another episode of the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour presented by myffpc.com. It was broadcast live and was watched around the world. Balky and Ferrell will be back next week with more analysis, more interviews, and more advice from guests much smarter than they are. Thanks for watching, and we'll talk with you again next week.
I meant to drive this point home a little bit more on the show tonight, and I didn't. There are 2 Monday night games this week, okay? So, and I think they start at, I want to say 7 o'clock and then like 8:15, something like that. Regardless, just understand that lineups may or may not be a little bit difficult. Some of these injured guys may be watching the Saturday injury report because they could change how you treat your lineups on Sunday morning, given that we may not know the final status for these guys until 90 minutes before game time on Monday night. Enjoy your supersized Monday of football. I'll talk to you Tuesday on the RotoViz High Stakes Lowdown. Otherwise, I'll talk to you 10 p.m. Friday night on this show. Thanks so much for watching, everybody. I appreciate each and every one of you.